It seems like everywhere you turn these days, generative AI is all anyone's talking about. It's like every headline you see screams about how it's going to completely revolutionize everything.
Yeah, it really has captured the public's imagination, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But, with all the hype surrounding generative AI, it's easy to overlook another form of AI, one that's quietly transforming businesses as we speak, and that's predictive AI.
That is a great point, and that's exactly where we're diving in today. We're doing a deep dive into a video we found on Big Think Plus Air, featuring an AI expert named Eric Siegel, who does a great job of breaking down both generative and predictive AI. And one thing I found really fascinating was that he kind of challenges some of the common assumptions we often hear about generative AI.
He does. He begins by discussing how generative AI can create this human-like text, even on complex topics. And of course, he brings up ChatGPT as an example.
Right. It's incredible what ChatGPT can do. I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing to see it in action. But Siegel argues that this impressive output might be creating sort of an illusion of true understanding.
Right. He actually uses this really interesting phrase. He says that generative AI is correct, often only as a side effect.
Okay, now that's interesting. What does that even mean? So does that suggest that generative AI might be stumbling upon correct answers without actually understanding the underlying concepts?
That's the implication. Think about it like this. Imagine a student who could just repeat information word for word from a textbook, but they don't really grasp the material. They might be able to pass a multiple choice test just fine,
Right.
but they wouldn't be able to apply that knowledge in the real world.
So are we seeing the same thing with generative AI, just a kind of sophisticated mimicry, but not true intelligence?
Siegel seems to think so. He argues that while generative AI can be really helpful for creating first drafts or summaries, it's not going to replace human expertise anytime soon. He really stresses how important it is to carefully review and edit anything that's generated by AI.
And that makes a lot of sense, especially for our listeners who are all about maximizing efficiency. I mean, you wouldn't want to rely on AI to generate content that needs a ton of revisions.
Exactly. And that's where predictive AI comes in with a completely different approach. Instead of trying to copy human creativity, predictive AI focuses on improving systems that already exist by analyzing data to make predictions.
So instead of, writing poems or code, predictive AI is more about practical things like making sure deliveries arrive on time or helping businesses make better decisions.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Predictive AI is all about learning from past data to optimize what happens in the future. And that has huge implications for efficiency and productivity.
So can you give us an example of how this works in a real-world situation?
Absolutely. Siegel talks about this really interesting case study with UPS. They've started using predictive AI to forecast how many deliveries they'll have, optimize all those delivery routes, and even predict any potential disruptions that might happen.
Wow, so what impact has this had on UPS?
Well, the results are pretty impressive. It's estimated that by using predictive AI, UPS has saved around $350 million every year.
That's a lot of money. What else?
Their on-time delivery rates have gone up. And they've also been able to reduce their impact on the environment by optimizing those routes and using less fuel.
So it's like predictive AI is a crystal ball that helps businesses anticipate and adapt to changes. It's not about replacing human decisions, but it gives them the information to make smarter choices.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that predictive AI is already being used in a bunch of different industries. Siegel mentions examples in healthcare, finance, and even urban planning.
So while generative AI might get all the attention, predictive AI is working behind the scenes to optimize systems and processes across a bunch of different sectors. It makes you wonder if maybe we're focusing on the wrong type of AI.
That's an important question to consider. And it really gets to the heart of Siegel's point about focusing on concrete value.
What does he mean by concrete value?
He's basically saying that we should be looking for AI applications that deliver real benefits. Instead of getting caught up in all the hype about artificial general intelligence or AGI,
So instead of dreaming about super intelligent machines taking over, we should be finding practical ways to use AI right now to solve problems and improve our lives.
exactly. And this is where Siegel's perspective on AGI comes in. You know that concept of artificial general intelligence that's often shown in sci-fi movies as this all-powerful AI that's smarter than humans. But Siegel believes that AGI is still a very long way off.
So all that talk about AI taking over the world is a bit premature.
It's definitely something to be cautious about. Siegel's main point is that we should focus on the concrete and practical uses of AI, rather than getting lost in futuristic fantasies.
Which makes sense. If we're always chasing some hypothetical super intelligent AI, We might miss the real opportunities to use AI to solve problems and improve our lives right now.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance
Hmm.
between exploring what's possible and focusing on what's happening in the present.
I'm curious, how does this all connect back to the differences between generative AI and predictive AI?
Well, generative AI often gets swept up in the hype about AGI. People see how it can generate human-like text and assume that means it's about to become truly intelligent. But Siegel argues that generative AI, while impressive, is still nowhere near achieving anything close to general intelligence.
So we need to be careful not to get too carried away by the excitement. And remember that generative AI does have its limitations.
Exactly. And that's one area where predictive AI really shines, because it focuses on concrete and practical uses. It's about making things better, automating tasks, making businesses more efficient. It's not about creating something totally new, but optimizing what we already have.
It sounds like Siegel is arguing for a more grounded approach to AI, one that emphasizes real results over hypothetical possibilities.
You got it. He's encouraging both businesses and individuals to look for ways to use AI to get real, tangible results, not just flashy demos.
So as we keep exploring generative AI and predictive AI, it seems like the question isn't which one is better, but which one is the right tool for the job.
That's a great point. And it leads to another important question. What are the potential downsides of these technologies?
That is a great question. We've talked about the benefits, but it's just as important to consider the potential challenges.
Absolutely. We need to look at all of this from a balanced perspective.
So what are some of the challenges that come to mind when you think about generative and predictive AI?
Hmm, let me think. Well, one concern with predictive AI is the issue of bias. It's important to remember that these systems are only as good as the data they're trained on. So if that data reflects biases that already exist in the real world, the algorithms can actually amplify those biases.
That's a really crucial point. If we're training these systems with biased data, we could end up making societal inequalities even worse.
Exactly. And this isn't just a theoretical problem. We've already seen examples of AI systems showing bias in things like loan applications, hiring decisions,
Yeah.
and even in the criminal justice system.
So how do we fix this? How can we make sure that predictive AI is used ethically and responsibly?
Well, it starts with being aware of the potential for bias. We need to really scrutinize the data that's used to train these systems and look for ways to reduce any bias that we find.
So it's not enough to just create these complex algorithms. We also have to be very careful about the data we use and think about what could happen as a result of their predictions.
Exactly. It's a responsibility that's shared by everyone involved. Developers, data scientists, and policymakers. We all need to work together to make sure that AI benefits everyone.
Siegel also talks about how important it is to understand how these systems work. He uses the analogy of a black box, where data goes in and predictions come out, but we don't always know what happens in between.
Yes, transparency is key. We need to understand the reasoning behind AI's predictions, especially when those predictions have big consequences.
Like if a predictive AI system is being used to decide who gets approved for a loan, we need to know why some applicants are approved and others are denied.
Exactly. And that's where the black box analogy becomes a problem. If we don't understand how the system makes its decisions, it's hard to find and fix any mistakes or biases.
So transparency isn't just about fairness, it's also about building trust in these systems.
That's a great point. The more we understand how AI works, the more likely we are to trust it and use it in our lives and work.
Siegel really emphasizes that we shouldn't see AI as a replacement for human judgment. He says we need to find the right balance between human expertise and AI capabilities.
Yes, and he uses the term augmented intelligence to describe this collaboration, where AI systems help us do things better, rather than replacing us altogether.
I really like that term, augmented intelligence. It suggests that AI can be this amazing tool to help and empower people.
Exactly. And this is where I think a lot of the conversation around AI goes wrong. People focus on the extremes. Either AI is going to save the world or AI is going to destroy the world.
But the reality is probably somewhere in between. AI is definitely going to change many parts of our lives, but it's not likely to completely replace human intelligence.
Right. Siegel encourages us to see AI as a powerful tool, one that can help us tackle tough problems and make smarter decisions. It's an opportunity to improve our abilities and maybe even create a more efficient and equitable world.
I think that's a really positive and empowering way to think about AI. It's not about humans versus machines, but how we can work together and use technology to make the world a better place.
I agree. And it's important to remember that AI is still pretty young. It's constantly evolving and getting better. So the possibilities for what we can achieve with it are truly limitless.
And speaking of the future, Siegel isn't afraid to talk about the potential long-term implications of AI. He brings up the idea of superintelligence and all the ethical questions that come with creating machines that could one day be smarter than humans.
It's a fascinating and thought-provoking topic for sure. It raises questions about what it means to be conscious, the role of humans in a world dominated by technology, and what intelligence really is.
And it's a conversation that we should be having now. As we continue to develop more and more sophisticated AI systems,
Absolutely. We need to think about the potential consequences, both good and bad, of creating machines that might one day be as smart as or even smarter than we are.
Siegel argues that we need to be proactive about setting ethical guidelines and safeguards for the development and use of AI. He says it's crucial to make sure AI aligns with human values and ensure that it's used for good.
I think that's a crucial point. We can't just blindly chase technological advancements without thinking about the ethical implications. We need to make sure that AI is developed and used responsibly.
Siegel talks about the idea of value alignment, which is basically making sure that AI systems share our values and goals.
It's about making sure that AI is working towards the same things we are, and that it doesn't accidentally cause harm or go against our values.
It sounds like a really difficult challenge. How do we even define and align AI with something as abstract as human values?
It's not easy, that's for sure. It requires experts from all kinds of fields: computer science, philosophy, ethics, social sciences. We need to have open and honest conversations about the kind of future we want to build with AI.
And those conversations need to include a variety of perspectives.
Absolutely. We have to avoid letting just a small group of people make decisions about technology that will ultimately affect everyone.
I think Siegel's insights are a great reminder that AI isn't just a technical issue, it's a societal one. It's about how we choose to use this powerful technology to shape the future.
That's right. And it's a responsibility we all share, whether we're AI developers, policymakers, or just people living in a world that's increasingly influenced by AI.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the potential risks of AI, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about the potential benefits. What are some of the ways that AI could make our lives better?
Well, there's so many possibilities. But one area that I'm really excited about is healthcare. AI has the potential to revolutionize how we diagnose and treat diseases.
I've heard about AI being used to detect cancer cells in medical images.
That's right. AI-powered systems are already being used in hospitals and clinics to analyze medical images like X-rays and CT scans. And they can often detect patterns that human doctors might miss.
That's incredible. So AI could help doctors make more accurate diagnoses.
Exactly. And it's not just about detection. AI can also help with things like personalized treatment plans and drug discovery.
So AI could help us develop new and better treatments for diseases.
Absolutely. And this is just one example. AI has the potential to make a positive impact in so many different areas, from education to transportation to energy.
It sounds like AI could help us address some of the biggest challenges facing the world today.
I believe so. It's an incredibly powerful tool, and if we use it wisely, it has the potential to create a brighter future for everyone.
I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the impact of AI on the job market? There's a lot of concern that AI could lead to widespread job losses.
It's a valid concern, and it's something that we need to be thinking about carefully. There's no doubt that AI will automate certain tasks, and some jobs will inevitably be displaced.
So what can we do to prepare for these changes?
Well, for one thing, we need to focus on education and training. We need to help people develop the skills they'll need to succeed in the jobs of the future.
Jobs that will likely require creativity, critical thinking.
Exactly. Those are the skills that will be most valuable in an AI-powered world.
So it's not just about learning how to code.
Not at all. It's about developing those uniquely human skills that machines can't replicate.
This has been a fascinating conversation. We've covered a lot of ground, but I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this complex and rapidly evolving field.
I agree. It's an incredibly exciting time to be involved in AI.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just want to emphasize again the importance of approaching AI with both enthusiasm and caution.
We need to embrace the possibilities, but also be mindful of the risks
We need to have open and honest conversations about the future we want to create with AI.
and work together to ensure that it benefits all of humanity.
Well said.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
It was a pleasure.
And for our listeners, be sure to tune in next time for another deep dive into the world of AI.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the excitement, about these amazing new technologies. But it's really important to take a step back and consider the potential downsides, too.
You're absolutely right. We have to look at this with a balanced perspective. So what kind of challenges come to mind for you when you think about generative AI and predictive AI?
One concern with predictive AI that always comes up is bias. Because you see, predictive AI is only as good as the data it learns from. So if the data itself has biases, biases that already exist in the world, then the algorithms can actually make those biases even worse.
That's a really important point. So if we're using data that's already biased to train these systems, we could end up perpetuating and even amplifying societal inequalities.
Exactly. And this isn't just some theoretical problem. We've already seen real-world examples of AI systems exhibiting bias, like in loan applications or hiring processes, even in the criminal justice system.
That's concerning. So how do we address this issue? How can we ensure that predictive AI is used ethically and responsibly?
Well, I think the first step is awareness. We need to be aware of the potential for bias and carefully examine the data sets that are used to train these systems. Look for any signs of bias and find ways to mitigate it.
So it's not enough to just develop these sophisticated algorithms. We also need to be really thoughtful about the data we feed them.
Precisely. And we need to consider the potential consequences of the predictions they make.
It's a big responsibility.
It is. It's a shared responsibility among developers and data scientists and policymakers to ensure that AI is used in a way that benefits everyone.
Siegel also talks about the importance of understanding how these AI systems actually work. He uses this analogy of a black box where data goes in, predictions come out, but we don't always know what's happening inside.
Yeah, that black box analogy is a good one. Transparency is crucial when it comes to AI. We need to be able to understand the reasoning behind the predictions, especially when those predictions have significant consequences.
For example, if a predictive AI system is being used to make decisions about loan applications, we need to be able to understand why certain applicants are approved or denied.
Exactly, and that's why that black box analogy can be problematic.
Right.
Because if we don't know how the AI system is making its decisions, it becomes really difficult to identify and correct any errors or biases.
So transparency is not just about fairness, it's also about building trust in these systems.
You got it. The more we understand how AI works, the more likely we are to trust its predictions and feel comfortable integrating it into our lives.
Siegel makes a strong argument that AI should not be seen as a replacement for human judgment.
He does?
He emphasizes that we need to find the right balance
Yeah.
between human expertise and AI capabilities.
Right. He uses the term augmented intelligence to describe this kind of collaboration, where AI systems enhance our abilities rather than replacing us altogether.
I really like that term, augmented intelligence. It has a much more positive connotation.
It does.
It suggests that AI can be a powerful tool to support and empower humans.
Exactly. And I think that's where the conversation about AI often goes off track.
Yeah.
People tend to focus on these extreme scenarios, like AI is either going to be this utopian solution to all our problems, or it's going to be this existential threat.
But the reality is probably somewhere in between.
Most likely.
AI will definitely transform many aspects of our lives, but it's unlikely to completely replace human intelligence or ingenuity.
I agree.
Siegel encourages us to think of AI as a tool, a powerful tool that can help us solve complex problems and make better decisions.
He sees it as an opportunity to enhance our capabilities and create a more efficient and equitable world.
And I think that's a really optimistic and empowering way to look at it. It's not about machines versus humans, but about finding ways to work together and harness the power of technology for the greater good.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
It's important to remember that AI is still in its early stages of development. It's constantly evolving and improving.
It is.
So the possibilities for the future are really quite vast.
Yeah.
Now, Siegel doesn't shy away from addressing the potential long-term implications of AI either.
No, he doesn't.
He even talks about the possibility of superintelligence and all the ethical considerations that come with creating machines that may one day surpass human intelligence.
It's definitely a fascinating topic, and one that raises some pretty profound questions about consciousness,
Yeah.
the role of humans in a technologically advanced world, and even the very definition of intelligence.
It's a conversation that we need to be having now as we continue to develop these increasingly sophisticated AI systems.
I agree. It's not something we can just ignore.
We need to be thinking about the potential consequences, both positive and negative, of creating machines that might one day rival or even surpass our own intellectual capabilities.
We do. It's a big responsibility.
Siegel argues that we need to be proactive in establishing ethical guidelines and safeguards for the development and deployment of AI.
He does.
He emphasizes the importance of aligning AI with human values and ensuring that it's used for the benefit of humanity.
Absolutely. We can't just blindly pursue technological advancement without thinking about the ethical implication.
Right.
We need to make sure that AI is developed and used responsibly.
Siegel talks about this concept of value alignment, which is essentially the idea of making sure that AI systems are aligned with human values and goals.
Yes, making sure that AI is working towards the same objectives that we are, and that it doesn't inadvertently cause harm or undermine our values.
That sounds like a really complex challenge. How do we even begin to define and align AI with something as abstract as human values?
It's definitely not easy. It requires collaboration among experts from many different fields: computer science, philosophy, ethics, social sciences. We need to have open and honest conversations about what kind of future we want to create with AI.
And it's important to make sure that those conversations involve diverse perspectives and voices.
Couldn't agree more.
We need to avoid falling into the trap of having a small group of people making decisions about technology that will ultimately impact everyone. I think Siegel's insights offer a really valuable reminder that AI is not just a technological issue, it's a societal one.
It is.
It's about how we choose to shape the future with this powerful technology.
And that's a responsibility that we all share, whether we're AI developers or policymakers, or simply citizens living in a world that's increasingly influenced by AI.
You know, it's interesting how these conversations about AI always seem to gravitate towards these extremes. Like it's either going to be this amazing utopia or it's going to be this, dystopian nightmare.
Yeah, it's like we can't resist those dramatic narratives, can we?
I know, right? But like we were talking about earlier, the reality is probably going to be somewhere in between. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from our deep dive today. Generative AI versus predictive AI, it's not about picking one over the other or, freaking out about some AI takeover. It's about understanding what each technology is good at and what its limitations are, and then figuring out how to use them to solve real-world problems.
Exactly. It's about finding the right tool for the job
Right.
and realizing that, AI isn't a magic bullet.
Siegel really emphasizes the importance of focusing on what he calls concrete value and finding practical applications. He keeps coming back to that example of UPS and how they've used predictive AI to optimize their delivery routes and save money and even reduce their environmental impact.
It's the perfect example of how AI can be used to improve things, make systems more efficient, more sustainable, without having to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
And I think that's an important lesson for everyone, whether you're running a business or just trying to make your own life a little bit easier. You don't have to wait for some big futuristic breakthrough to start using AI to make things better.
Absolutely. It's about finding those opportunities to enhance what we're already doing, whether that's automating tasks or improving decision-making or just, simplifying things.
Exactly.
Well, I think this is a great place to wrap up our deep dive. I hope our listeners have a better understanding now of the possibilities,
Right.
but also the responsibilities that come with these powerful technologies. It's up to all of us to shape the future of AI and make sure that it's a future that benefits everyone. And as we've discussed today, that starts with understanding the nuances of these technologies and looking at them with a critical eye and focusing on those practical applications that can make a real difference in the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's an exciting time to be exploring the world of AI.
Is.
And who knows what incredible breakthroughs are just around the corner. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And be sure to tune in next time for another exploration into the world of cutting-edge ideas and technologies.